Hoorah! And happy birthday to all my fellow crayon-eating, jar-headed Marines out there, veterans, active duty, and reservists alike. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And we'll never stop saying stupid stuff about it. We'll never stop bragging about it. You can't get the core out of the Marine, even though you can make that work the other way around, right? And it's been a long time for me. You know, even talking about my experience as a veteran now, I go, yeah, I was in Iraq in 2004, and it's all of a sudden I look back and it's like, whoa, 2004? Your war. Oh, you know, it was an occupation force at that point, but your war was 16 years ago? And there's been a general de-escalation of militarism over the course of human history. And that really is a beautiful thing to celebrate and to recognize as we celebrate this one little quirk of militarism, because it was on this day, November 10th, in the year 1775, that the Continental Congress declared that 2 battalions of Marines be raised. And from that day forward, today is celebrated as the Marine Corps birthday. We have balls, we have big balls, we have fancy balls, we have silly balls, we have every kind of ball that you could possibly imagine. We have great music as well. We have military marching music, the Marine Corps hymn, a beautiful song, truly beautiful song. And you know, there is something special about the Marines, besides the fact that we eat more crayons than all other branches of the United States military combined, including the Space Force. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. And there's still something beautiful and righteous to be celebrated here. And I want to deconstruct this, this sort of part of this important part of the mythology of militarism, which is that the only way you can be a warrior is to sign up to kill for politicians, or that's even a righteous way to be a warrior. And this is true about a lot of branches. You know, I think there are some special things about the Marines, but the main thing that's special about the Marines is that when you join, you really are putting your life on the line in a way that you might not be with other branches. But inherently, by being a Marine, you are taking on the call for every Marine to be a rifleman, to be ready to serve as infantry at the drop of a hat if necessary. And so there's something I want to celebrate today. It's my birthday. Yeah, and if you don't know, Marines have all sorts of silly traditions, but one of my favorites is when it was November 10th, if you're around a bunch of Marines, hey, happy birthday, Marine, happy birthday, Marine, happy birthday, Marine, happy birthday, Marine. And it's like, yeah, we turn every gathering of Marines on November 10 every year becomes a weird cluster of happy birthdays. And there's so many great things to reference. There's so much. I mean, just look at those uniforms. At least we think that they'll make you have sex with us very quickly. But it's not those. It's not the greens. It's not the service uniforms. It's the dress blues that we wear to the ball. And aside from this idea that inherently by being a Marine, you are a warrior, there is something significant to this, and really beautiful, righteous things. The willingness to risk your life to defend your community, to do the right thing, to protect the innocent, to defend those who cannot defend themselves.
Good.
And in my case, I actually believed a significant part of the propaganda. I believed that the Marine Corps had a net effect of peace upon the world. And sadly, the reality is that of the righteous, legitimate, beautiful things that it means to be a warrior, militarism, particularly in the United States, is a disgusting perversion of that. Instead of putting your life on the line to do the right thing, you're putting your life on the line to do what politicians decided was the right thing. And I want to share a little story real quick from one of the tours that I did. And this is with a National Guard vet. By the way, dude was born with one arm, still managed to get himself into the Guard as a PAO. But someone who definitely has that spirit, my friend Zach Foster. We were on tour, incidentally, with a Marine Corps driver, former Marine Eden Donabella, driving through Florida, and we came upon stop traffic on the freeway. And after a few minutes of going, what's going on? Is this clearing? Is this moving? No, it's not. Zach and I decided to recon forward, assuming that this was a protest or something. Like BLM was doing highway blockages at the time for protesting. We walked a good quarter of a mile through stopped traffic. Yeah. Past hundreds of people before we came to the scene of the accident. It was a bad one. 3 cars at least seriously damaged. 2 groups of people standing around. One dude alone in his own vehicle when we got there with a dog in the passenger seat. And Zach and I run up and we're like, how come nobody's helping? What's going on here? Everybody all right? Nobody really was even the people in the front row of cars there didn't get out to help. And when we got to the guy with the dog, he was incapacitated. He had hit his head. He was bleeding. He had relevant pre-existing medical conditions. And, we helped him get comfortable, get in contact with his father, secure the dog, get the dog to the father, make sure the paramedics, when they got there, that they knew, to move him carefully because of, the pre-existing condition that he was dealing with. And it shocked me. It really shocked me. I mean, that we are so conditioned to not be proactive, to not jump out, pull over at the scene of an accident and help out. And there's something about this, righteous thing that you do, putting your life on the line, believing that you're doing it for the right thing or a noble cause when you join the U.S. military. And sadly, that is one of those things that, and there's a divine masculine warrior element to this, but militarism over the course of American history has perverted the very foundation of what it's supposed to mean to be American. We think back to the revolutionary times when we celebrate the Marine Corps birthday, and that year 1775 comes up, right? Before the Declaration of July 4, 1776. And the war that followed, the war for American independence, was not one of serving the king. It was one of rebellion, of everybody being a traitor, because that's what they were called to do the right thing, to protect their families, their communities. So I think one of the things that I like to do every November 10th, and certainly the 11th, tomorrow being Veterans Day, we get to be a little more inclusive. But when I think back to what it means to be a warrior and wanting to be proud of that, and proud that I completed boot camp, and that I'm not proud that I went to Iraq, that I was a party to a war crime, that I personally obeyed orders that were unlawful, that should have been disobeyed. it's sort of like joining the military itself today. An act of reckless naivete. It is almost cowardly, even though. Not just ignorant of the situation, but cowardly. To instead of saying, I'm going to take on this challenge, seeing where as a warrior, I can best serve humanity. No, I'm just going to sign the dotted line, follow a career path, follow orders, stay in my lane, know my role, and be obedient. And that's one of the great immediate dichotomies of the Marine Corps. Marine Corps drill, we don't have drill sergeants, we have drill instructors. And the pop and lock posture that every Marine learns is not just so we can all look good in a formation, but rather to train us to have, as they say, instant and willing obedience to orders. I can't imagine anything that's a greater perversion of what it's supposed to mean to be a Marine, a warrior, an American, a man, or just a decent human being. And I never thought that we would be celebrating the Marine Corps birthday this year with legal cannabis in Arizona and with our producer, CJ Abernathy in South Dakota, also Marine Corps combat veteran. But here we are, nonetheless, evolving past militarism. Happy birthday, Marines. And today is Tuesday, November 10, 2020. That's right. We are, geez, has it only been a week? Are we still doing this thing? The worst election of your lifetimes is done. Or not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. We got, I for the sake of shit kind of calming down a little bit, I'm hoping that the obvious prediction that I would make about what happens here with the election, Ben Heckman says that was a weak bong hit. All right, sometimes I don't always nail the timing on screen, so just for you, Ben, make sure you know I got my medicine this morning. You happy now? All right. So this state we find ourselves in of uncertainty right now is, yeah. And we're still at this point where, yeah, it looks like all the momentum is going towards Biden, but Trump has at least a few stops to pull out before he gives up. If you recall back to the closest historical proxy we have of this, which we explained on the show yesterday, Bush-Gore 2000, decided by the Supreme Court. It was 39 days. People thought Gore was president until the Supreme Court intervened in the counting process to radically oversimplify things. So we have another feature today we're going to get to soon. CJ wants to pull up the Commandant's birthday message and to hear me respond. How long is that, CJ? The Commandant has to do. I thought it was a written message every year. Now it's a video, audio message. That's, yeah, welcome to the future, ladies and gentlemen. We got some great stories about that today. We got a great guest from Down Under, and I'm actually really excited because I got to do an interview for her show a couple of weeks ago. When was it now? Maybe a month ago. And she describes herself as as a conservative. And basically I was able to convince her that she was a socialist. And we're going to get into that. This is going to be so Dia Beltran is our guest. She has been moving from her description, moving from right wing towards libertarian principles, and is just a beautiful example of an open-minded critical thinker coming our way from the right. So we're going to get into that today. The big story, though, before we get to the commandant's message, we're going to hit promotions and check in with another veteran here, Jim. Comment, Jim Freedom. But our story from yesterday, we touched on this, and this is, I want to open this up as a contest for today's show. I think very appropriate for a Marine Corps birthday. This is the headline from The Sun. Real risk. COVID could spark World War III and army of 30,000 robots may fight future conflict, Chief of Defense Staff warned. General Sir Nick Carter made the claims about the future of the British forces as he warned the economic fallout of the pandemic has made the prospect of World War III a risk. And I mean, I'm surprised I hadn't spent more time on this analysis earlier, because I was just so excited that we had a pandemic instead of a war this time. This is what the government racket is doing for viciousness, right? This is the best they can come up with to exploit us. But then you go, oh, shit. When you, and the title of today's show is, could COVID spark World War III? And I put spark in there in quotes because that's how the government's going to make it look. That's how the victors who write the history are going to make it look. They're not going to say that, oh yeah, it was all a false flag and we engineered the whole thing and there was no reason for a war, because there never is. We did it to serve the overall purpose of government, you know, keep the super rich getting richer and the rest of us getting relatively poorer. So there is this possibility. Now, World War III, robots, but I got to give credibility to this possibility to think that maybe the economic challenges, stress, desperation that we're experiencing right now globally due to COVID, and in some places much worse than others, right? That this may be enough to give governments, and I can't, like, I seem to look at this and I go, yeah, it seems unlikely that this would escalate to something that we would call a world war. But significant, this is the question I want to ask you today. This is the question that I'm going to ask the audience, because this is how you win membership in the Producers Club. And the big question is, how much are we currently at risk of World War III starting? And how does COVID play into that one way or another? So I'm looking for the best comment or the best caller today, the best analysis to help answer this question. And this is why I love the Producers Club. The winner of today's contest gets membership in the Producers Club. But you know, I don't have a paid staff. We have an awesome core team of volunteers working to build this business. But the editorial conversation that we're able to have in the Producers Club chat, with now just over 30 people, I think, in a Telegram group, it's amazing, because like I would not be able to do this if it was like if I just had me look at the internet. Like I have to be able to, you know, cast a wider net over the news to make sure that I'm doing what I take as my journalistic responsibility here with Adam versus the Man, to inform you sufficiently. I mean, I feel like if you're going to give me 2 hours of your time 5 days a week, I better make it worth your while one way or another. And it's not just a better understanding of the world, a clearer lens through which to see it, and an empowering perspective about how to live. But within all of that, a sort of journalistic responsibility that I have, that I think I take to a different level than what the mainstream media might refer to as their journalistic responsibility. And there's no way I'll ever be perfect. There's no way you can tune into Adam versus the Man with a $1 million fantasy budget and staff and researchers and writers and all that. There's no way we're going to be able to present that perfect, pure, unbiased, unobstructed view of everything going on in the world today. But because of the Producers Club, we're able to do an incredible job. And one of the things I get bigger question to ask the broader audience today, World War III. What's the risk right now? What's the role of COVID? You can win membership in the Producers Club. And if you check it out, we'll get it on screen right now. AdamVersusTheMan.com. Click on the Patreon link. That'll take you to patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. If you buy in for $10, you give us money, unwanted vehicles, small children, gold-plated babies, anything like that. We'll take it all. We take all kinds of donations, at least if you can get it here to Gardenia, to the Garden of Freedom, to the Freedom Factory, our new office studio building. I'm enjoying very much. Thank you to everybody in the Producers Club who's made it possible for us to get to this level. The other thing is, you can support the show by buying merch. Check out AdamVersusTheMan.com. CJ's put together an incredible store there. And if you're a patron, better $5 or more a month, or a Producers Club member, even if you win your membership, you're going to get 15% off and free shipping. And, we don't mind. I don't think we make any money with that margin, but we're happy to just help get merch out there to spread the message and wake people up, like the book Freedom, which I should have handy here. Do I have a studio copy handy? I don't know. Check it out, thefreedomline.com. You can get the ultimate primer on freedom there. And just, I don't know, when you get it, you understand. I don't have to tell you why this is important, but I will remind you every chance I get, do what you can to share this message. Whether if you're watching live right now, give us a retweet or a share on Facebook or wherever it is that you're watching us, do something to help spread this message. And one of the things that we're doing also is make them debate. It's a fun way to spread the message through online debates, which I have enjoyed throughout my entire political activism career. Can you call it that? Can you call it a career now? There have been consistent, productive, and lucrative periods in my 14 years as a full-time activist of one stripe or another, and it's been an incredible journey. And I'm grateful now to have Mercedes Damertowski in Nebraska helping us out as our debate manager. But if you want to help her out, check that out, makethemdebate.com. Go to my profile. You can make a new debate, set up something fun. I could play my alter ego. Adam loves the man. I could moderate. I'd be happy to play whatever role. So check that out. And finally, our affiliate partner is cigarfederation.com. Please check them out. Support them by buying a cigar or two. Check out the JSK Nugs, my favorites there, the CBD infused cigars. And promo code ADAM10, Adam10 gets you 10% off your order there. So, CJ, why don't you jump on screen here before we check in with Jim and the audience here? How long is this message from the Commandant of the Marine Corps?
Well, if you want to be not president of the United States someday, you're going to have to, have a conversation with the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And so I just kind of figured let's get an early preview of Adam and what he would say about this lovely message here.
I am absolutely proud to be a Marine. I'm proud of my service. I'm proud of the fact that I was in a position to do something to preserve my freedom and to hold on to those values that can only be had by free people.
Trust is not given, nor is it easily earned. Today, the trust of the nation is our inheritance, a trust earned through the selfless valor and determined actions of generations of Marines on the distant shores and misty battlefields of our storied past.
We were really snowed as to why we would need so many Marines to take this little piece of rock. But after the first day, when they lost so many wounded and killed, they announced that night we're going to shore. And the island was so different in its appearance from Guam and the other islands that we've been on. There was no jungle, wasn't anything. Even though we'd been in combat before, you could see right off it wasn't going to be anything like what we had experienced before.
Long before we wear the uniform, long before the eagle, globe, and anchor is etched on our soul, we sense the special appeal that sets Marines apart. Our ethos, values, and character speak to our nation's heart.
All I wanted was an opportunity. Don't give me anything else. Just let me, just show me the way and I'll get it done. And that was my motivation. I got an opportunity to serve in the Marine Corps, and I chose Special Forces. I chose Force Recon, and I did 3 tours in Force Recon. Did fairly well. Got a chance to be a combat swimmer. Made 3 combat dives and 2 swims of 1,500 meters in enemy territory. And we fought our way from the DMZ back to Hawaii City. And Team Broadmine, it was my team.
Our nation expects us to be the world's finest military professionals, to be capable and ready.
Is this just all propaganda, or is there like some kind of meaningful, timely message from the commandant for this particular moment in history in this thing? How much is left of this? I'm deliberately cutting it off.
Okay, well, yeah, no. Every year the commandant puts out a message, so yeah, just figured that you might want to see it for yourself, share it with the audience, but yeah.
No, I appreciate that, CJ, but like this is, unless there's something else at the end that's like of actual, anything other. I mean, all of the propaganda in this is just sort of nostalgia and timeless platitudes for the warrior class. And even here, I want to take this moment to tell the story of Major General Smedley Butler, just very quickly, that he was one of the most decorated Marines in military history, 2 Medals of Honor, Bronze Stars, Silver Stars, blah, 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 Purple Hearts, World War I, all the banana wars around that. And when we go to boot camp, we learn about Major General Smedley Butler. We are taught that we would celebrate his history as one of the best Marines ever. Him and Chesty Puller, right? Good night, Chesty. And they don't tell you that when he got out of the Marine Corps, he wrote a book called War is a Racket, in which he described himself as a high-class muscle man for big business. And I think it was only after he got out that he became a warrior. And I think to our tradition of with Iraq Veterans Against the War, I look at, the kind of stuff that we faced with police. And I think, how mild our combat experience was compared to most Vietnam veterans. And I think of my the guy, I'm a hero of mine, Scott Camille. If you want to check out, he's got a mini documentary called A Seasoned Veteran. I highly recommend it. And see that Scott Camille, got multiple Purple Hearts, and then came home and got shot by feds. I don't think I've ever even been shot at by police. It could have happened without my knowledge at certain points in my career as an activist. But I think even for Scott Camille, he might look back on Smedley Butler the same way that I look back on him and go, yeah, that guy was, it was a scale greater everything for that generation, even the brutality and the stakes. And one of the quirks of Smedley Butler's story is that he was allegedly recruited to lead a coup or be part of a coup against the U.S. federal government, and instead exposed it. So at what point was Smedley Butler a warrior? In standing up to the coup and writing the book and standing up to what had yet to be named as the military industrial complex of his day? I know for myself, at best, if I was a warrior when I was in the Marines, I was a warrior without a moral compass. And that's not a warrior, that's a soldier. And I like to point this out. There's a difference between a warrior who puts their life on the line to do the right thing and a soldier who takes a paycheck to kill for politicians. I think that contrast was clear enough from that. So when I see like that message, CJ, the Commandant's message on the Marine Corps birthday, at least it would have some meaningfulness if it was like, and here we find ourselves in the middle of COVID, and here's our policy, and here's our attitude, and let me, as a organizational leader, set the tone, right? Something like that. Take leadership. You want me to talk to the Commandant? What do I say as not president? You're fired. That's it. You're done. The American people, if you're gonna be a warrior, the American people have called you to a higher standard now, and they won't put up with this militarist, feminizing, anti-humane, silly nonsense that we take as an excuse for being a warrior today, being in the Marines. This message from the Commandant, in and of itself, if this is all it is, and I don't know, CJ, again, you want to watch the whole thing. If there's something I'm missing, if he says something more meaningful at the end, I'll take it back or eat my words. But in and of itself, just this is. I mean, I was in the Marines. Did I ever see the Marine Corps the Commandant's birthday message to the Marines? I mean, it was something they played maybe at the Marine Corps ball on the projector on the stage while I was trying to make out with my date in the back corner of the room, or get free drinks from the bar or something like that. Like I wasn't listening to the Commandant's message because this is what it's become, because this is what we expect. We affectionately call ourselves devil dogs. Teufelhunden is the nickname from World War I. And we also talk about being crayon eaters. But there's something about being a dog on a leash. You're not a warrior, you're a dog on a leash. And there's some weird, pride and ignorance. I don't know. First to go, last to know. That I just shoot who they tell me to shoot. Really? Like, step back and look at just how dumb and misguided and cowardly it is. To instead of being a warrior with your own moral compass, say, I'm just going to follow orders. So this kind of message, CJ, I mean, that's my response. Do I need to say anything? No. Whoever the Commandant of the Marine Corps is when we elect someone on the platform of taking the federal government through a peaceful, orderly bankruptcy process will certainly have some role in the reorganization, the dissolution of the U.S. military. But what's the worst they're going to do? Follow orders from the American people. Okay, good. Well, I'll be commander-in-chief long enough to sign the one executive order to make it clear that the ring has been thrown into the fire. CJ, I thought you were going to stay on screen, man. You got anything to add to that? I know you got something you want to say. You're muted.
I really don't have much to say into that one, Adam. Honestly, it's to me, you said it right. There's a party that wants to, be proud and have that feeling like you were doing the right thing. And I'm gonna say this. I think, and one of my sergeants told me this: the Marine Corps is what you make it. So, like in that mentality, like you take from it what you put into it. What you bring to the table. And I mean, Adam, my job was route clearance to find roadside bombs. So when you say you signed up to kill for politicians, no, I signed up to find bombs in the ground. Like there's a
or to
big,
help other people or be a part of the general effort. Yes, you're right that it is a
Right.
semantic oversimplification.
it is a completely stupid simplification of what it is to be a Marine. And so it almost comes off as insulting sometimes, but I'd like to think that somebody like Smedley Butler, who, if he was alive today, would be like, yeah, I got out and talked all this shit about the Marine Corps and how much we're all just profiteering off of war, destruction, death, and mayhem for politicians. Like, that's where, if you think about it, in boot camp, maybe they pass that stuff around so that, you know, the next generation Marines like, who is that Smedley Butler guy and why are they telling me to celebrate him? It's the same thing with, why are there 4 presidents' faces on a mountain over here, Adam? I mean, they were all slave owners and you know, wanting this huge federal government that now 240 something years later you want to abolish. It's like, it's almost like a stupid oversimplification. But as far as like playing that
Hold on, I want to pick this apart, CJ, before you move on, because if you join the Marines, you know, before you get to boot camp, every Marine or rifleman, you are going to be trained to kill, and you are going to be required for the time where you sign up to follow orders. Sometimes
lawful
it will be to kill people. Right. And you can say that, you know, like in the military, you want to break down the military as a whole. And you can say unknowingly, you know, people don't join the Marines for that purpose, to kill for politicians, but they sign up to do that in essence, even if it's unknowing to them at that time. I wanted to be the first kid on my block with a confirmed kill. And, you know, that was a part of it for me to be that, you know, in the mud and the blood kind of warrior.
It was definitely not that experience for me. And this is going to go back to older Marine than me, different part and time in the war, a different mentality. And you know, when I went to Iraq, it wasn't like wasn't like I can't wait to go shoot other people on the other side of the planet for Senator so-and-so of the great state that I am loyal to. It was, I'm going to go find bombs in the ground and hopefully keep the people around me safe. You know, each of us have different experiences, what I'm trying to say.
To break down the military itself, you could say has like 3 components. People who are signing up either with the Marines or Army Infantry or some other combat MOS unit who are saying, yes, I am signing up with the knowing that it comes with the possibility of I will be ordered to kill people. Then you have people who logistically help that. And that's the majority of the military, right? The majority of the military is just in a support role. Now we'll get to what is the main role they're supporting. I'll get to that. But then there's a very small part of the military, and I can kind of excuse this in some cases where you can really say you're not helping, but you're still part of the bigger machine. You know, if you sign up to be a cook in the Coast Guard or, you know, something like that.
So you're going to say that the guy that cooks the chow in San Mateo is privy and complicit to war crimes because he cooks the food for the guy?
Absolutely. Out of naivete. Nothing else. It's not, and a lot of this is made possible because of how much we're lied to, CJ. I'm not ascribing anything other than honorable intentions, but in irresponsible ignorance, naivete. That when you join the U.S. military and you haven't done your homework, no, that's irresponsible.
But if you've done your homework and you make a conscientious choice to join and do a job where you believe you can do as little violence as possible,
then you didn't do enough research.
No, that's not true at all. There's people that go into the military to be doctors.
Today?
How many people join the military and do like a medic position to save lives, like knowing that they're signing up to have to save a life, and there's, you know, they take that oath. So I find
if you don't join to become a medic, then the machine has to take one trigger puller and make them a medic, and it's one less body for the machine. So no.
The Navy dentist that pulled my wisdom teeth in boot camp is a war criminal because he is helping the system by being a dentist in boot camp.
No, see, now I'm not saying
How far does this does it go to being accomplice to the war crime of the
okay, hold
government?
on. So you brought in another criteria there that I did not, which is to say that you're a war criminal, and that's in order to commit a crime that there has to be a certain knowledge of it, right? You can't, if it's an
So
accident.
now naivete is okay. Now naivete is okay.
No, I'm not saying that it's okay, but I'm saying that makes you a victim. And this is the other thing that I think is really important to remember. And this is something that we grappled with a lot with Iraq Veterans Against the War. How much do we take blame for going along with promoting and carrying out the policy versus the politicians and the propagandists who lied to us to get us to believe that it was a reasonable or even halfway humane policy?
And I'm trying to be the exception of the rule here, Jim.
I think Jim's ready to jump in here. Let's do it. I can't help but think that in most ways, we who sign up in to the military, one way or another, are victims of propaganda and manipulation. Like you said, if you did your research, you can't do enough research in a lifetime to take full stock of all of the evils done in the name of the United States military. Jim?
Well, it's an interesting topic. I'm going to hesitate to pick a side or anything because you guys are obviously
don't get between two Marines.
right. Yeah, I was in the Army, guys. I have nothing to do with this. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I mean, I feel like I see what you both are saying. CJ just, I think, is having. I mean, he's right that the intentions are there. He wants to be somebody that wants to be a medic. So the medic, like what you said, if they choose not to be a medic, then they have to take one of the gun pullers to become a medic. So that's less people as gun pullers. So that would actually effectively be better as a whole. It's hard, I guess, for people that have gone and did it with best of intentions and tried to not harm anybody. But in reality, you are still helping the whole machine move and function, even if you're a fucking tire changer. If you didn't change that tire, maybe that caravan wouldn't have been able to assassinate more people. I mean, they probably would have. They would have just sent another caravan, obviously. But participation, I think what Adam's trying to say is, at the end of the day, we have to accept some level of responsibility and understand that it would have been better of us to not join in the first place. There are better ways we could have helped the world not do with this. It was a mistake to join in the first place, no matter what reason you joined for, because of the deepness of the corruption and the machine itself.
Was it though?
I think it was personally, yes. I think it was. I'm pre-war. I'm older than both of you guys, and I'm pre-war. I didn't go to any wars. I didn't go to Iraq. Iraq did. 9/11 wasn't a thing yet when I was in the service. So,
right.
It's a whole different world, but I'm just, from what I'm watching go through, that's my official opinion.
But yeah, no, and again, I kind of agree with Mercedes in the comments here in the Producers Club that this is if you worked for the Nazis, you're a Nazi argument. I really hesitate to say that somebody who's doing a non-violent job in the military is a war criminal. Or there's this
again. He already. We're not saying they're a war criminal. You're not
right. So Adam, you're just calling yourself
a war criminal.
A accomplice.
Well, I'm a war. So hold on. I am a war criminal for obeying an unlawful order and engaging in torture.
Get away from this war criminal.
Yeah. So no, for me, I specifically have that responsibility. But in the bigger sense, and anybody who was, supporting the effort directly there, I say I'm also a party to a war crime of the bigger crime of the creation of the policy of the global war on terror. I'm just, I'm looking for my favorite stormtrooper memes for comebacks here for you, because It's like I hate Darth Vader, but I fully support the Empire and the Stormtroopers. Like there's what people used to say that about Bush, support the troops, not the war, not the politicians. And it's like, what are you supporting them doing then? You signed up to be a part of this machine. Here's another one for the Marine Corps. CJ, it's a bunch of stormtroopers walking across some some foreign planet, and says, "I wish the Emperor would let us roll our sleeves." That was a big deal in the Marines, when you were allowed to roll your sleeves up. But Jim, do we have any comments? Any entries into our contest today? This is kind of a preview for what we're going to be talking about tomorrow on Veterans Day in a more inclusive, less crayon eating way. And we do want to remind everybody that veteran suicide is still a major issue. And right now, while we are still in a state of general aggravation around Corona, lockdowns, shutdowns, economic hardship, there are veterans and non-veterans alike who are much more at risk. And I want to remind everybody, CJ, if you get up on screen there, the suicide hotline, so we can make sure if anybody's watching this, we read that into the audio record. If you need to talk to someone, 1-800-273-8255. If you're a veteran, you can press 1. And then the other link we want to promote here is GI Rights Hotline today for anybody who's in the military who needs legal advice or help getting out as a conscientious objector or through whatever other mechanism that is available to you. They will help you figure that out. So check out GIRightsHotline.org. Jim, any comments on this? Back to the contest and the bigger picture here. Like, are we at risk of World War III? I hope this is all at least fun, if not valuable, background in understanding how wars happen, and that without people willing to point guns at peaceful people, you couldn't have an enforcement class of cops and soldiers, and government would lose its ability to be coercive. So, Jim, comments on that?
Well, the last thing I'll say before I get to the comments is when CJ was on. Yeah, there he is. Okay. Oh, we're gonna keep this going. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say you had said you didn't do enough research, and he really didn't like when you said that. I was just gonna say I was gonna add to that. Had you done enough research, then you would have never joined in the first place, and you would have dedicated your life to stopping the machine in the first place.
Not
Had
true
you
at all.
done enough research?
Not true at
opinion.
all. And I fundamentally disagree with you, Jim. With respect.
We understand.
But less respect since you were in the Army than we would have for a fellow Marine, obviously.
Yeah, fair enough.
Make sure you don't forget your place here.
Hey, I got this tattoo on my arm from going with 2 of my battle buddies and stealing a Marine flag and bringing it back to my drill sergeant. So, okay. First guest to the contest, I think, is Naomi Sterling. If there was a war, it's going to be because the American people are honestly fed up with all the corruption. COVID is just a pawn to control people. And she's also said, he or she, oh yeah, it's a picture of a girl. Okay. What are you even talking about, Adam? We are at war as we speak, right here in our own backyard. She thinks that civil war is raging in the country. But you're talking about literal war, right? Soldiers, other
something that we would describe as World War III that would not be a major break from what we call World War I and World War II, Right. I'm reminded of, I don't know if it's a saying or if there's somebody who deserves credit for the quote, but wars are when politicians tell you who the enemy is. Revolutions are when you figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And I like this idea that the American, and we could talk about this, and I think we've covered it enough in prior episodes, maybe not in this past year even, but that non-violent revolutions are not only more successful but more enduring than violent revolutions. And I would like to think that if only because we are privileged citizens of the empire who expect relative peace and stability in our backyards, that if there was a widespread movement for a revolutionary change in the United States, or just like what we're seeing right now, red states, blue states, that kind of silly stuff. I think before we would ever allow it to get to the scale of a war, a true, mass casualty, force on force, violent conflict, we're going to see successful secession movements or electoral revolutions. And I really have, and I hate to say, it's not that I have confidence in the system, but I have enough confidence in the American people and the information and technology that we have available to us that when we say, shit's got to change, we're going to have enough of the trigger pullers on our side that there's not going to be a bloody revolution or a bloody war. If it's red-blue conflict, it's the kind of petty shit we've seen in the streets over the last year. Yeah, that can be engineered. But at some point, we just go, screw it. We're out of here. California, we're independent. Texas, we're independent. And then you see, if it doesn't happen in a more organized way as I've proposed, then it'll happen at least in a way that avoids the cost of that violence.
Yeah, God willing. Ben Heckman chimes in, says there's no telling when government will pull something that they can use as an excuse to go to a war out of its ass. We are at a constant risk of a false flag attack that could initiate World War III, and that risk has been the same since the end of World War II.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Hold on, CJ. Listen to this point, because there's leave this comment up for me here, Jim. There is a bigger point to be made, because if you look back historically, and this is where I get into Pinker's work, Professor Pinker, his great TED Talk, The Surprising Decline in Violence, you see that, not only are we living in the most peaceful times in human history, but that violence lessens on the global scale from the period of World War I to World War II to Vietnam. And you go, okay, so they can, at any point, they can have a false flag. And you look at the global war on terror, 9/11. All right. Whether they made it happen or not doesn't matter. They used it to the full effect. But they were only able to use it to invade and occupy. And I want to demean the significance of the invasions and occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan, right? I'm not trying, but measure that against Vietnam. Measure that against World War II. And back then, you could have a Gulf of Tonkin incident, and there was no way to put a check on it. There was no alternative narrative. It was easier for the government to get away with lies and false flags and the Lusitania, and then turn them into massive conflicts. And in the age of the internet, that's just not quite possible. So I want to point out that yes, they can make false flags happen, but they can't convince millions of gullible young men to meet in the middle of a field where none of them live and kill each other because they're wearing different colors the way that they used to be. And I don't think that kind of war is ever going to come back. I'm very optimistic about that. And even this, it's 30,000 robots, right?
Oh, well, that has all the potential of being worse, actually. But, well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does. That would be worse, because robots would probably kill a lot more people, wouldn't you say, without the conscious of human beings?
Yeah, indiscriminately, they would kill indiscriminately.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When 30,000 robots without a human conscious behind it, a lot more damage would be done, I think.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the drones they were proposing for military drones? There's a crazy video, but little drones that could hunt people down in packs, and yeah, terrifying, really, to think about it. But yeah, no. Hey, there was a comment here. I wanted Jeff to know because I was reading it. You could join the Marines with the best intentions, but you are being used as a pawn. It's hard to let that sink in, but that's what happens. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Lots of people have been tricked. I don't think any less of someone who had good intentions when joining. The reality is it's just different than what you were sold.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, that's where I try to find, like, I want to think like, hey man, there could be plenty of Adam Kokeshes actively in the military right now who are like, I don't want to go to fucking war. And they're fighting the ones who are like, hey, fuck it, I signed up to kill for politicians as long as it's the right politician. Do you know what my favorite story is from the Marine Corps with the change of presidencies? I was in Camp Lejeune when Barack Obama was elected president, and the first thing I heard when it was announced over the media was a sergeant running down the catwalk saying, I don't work for no fucking nigger, I'm out of here. And they left, and they went unauthorized absence, UA, whatever you want to call it, AWOL, you name it. They just said, fuck this, I'm out. Well, they came back and got punished, don't worry. But yeah, it's in the military. There's a huge political divide in the military too, and I would venture to say there are libertarian-minded, active duty members out there. So yeah, I actually know some because they send me like their little thing saying, "Hey, I voted for Joe Jorgensen this time." So again, they're out there, but I'd like to think that at some point it's the same thing in the civilian world. I got 1 out of 10 votes here in my district, so 1 out of every 10 people I meet has libertarian-minded things. Maybe it's the same in the military. Maybe it's 1 out of every 10 service members are libertarian, and they just don't know how to get it out yet.
I think it's higher, but
I
just
would
as
love to think it's higher. I'd love to think it's higher.
because a lot of us, well, I mean, there are a lot of reasons. I don't think we got to pick that apart, right? We have time even to pick this one apart.
Right. Our guest isn't backstage yet, though. Just to let you know before I hop off here.
I just got a message from her. Okay, she should be ready in just a few minutes. So, Jim, any other critical comments before we skim a couple headlines and go to our guest?
Well, there's one more here that has an interesting thought that we could expand on. Miss Prepper is weighing in, regular watcher. The people are falling for COVID still, though. People will keep rioting. I think they will select Trump as president in December to divide the people even further. They will continue to burn down cities. I mean, just hearing that sentence or reading it out loud, thinking that they will select Trump in December, that would be mind-bogglingly genius as far as evil empires go. You know what I mean? As far as like, I was thinking that the evilness was putting Biden through, but if they did all this and they gave the liberals and the Democrats all this happiness and then just ripped their guts out, ripped it away from them, and then they lit a few, put bricks in front of them like they do. Yeah.
So it's possible. It's possible that there are, and this speaks to division among the super class between those who profit rather than cost more when it comes to the American federal empire, right? And do they want to weaken it? Do the ones profiting off the American system, lose that super class fight? I don't think they will. I think there are way too many of them who at this point benefit from stability. And but I got to consider that, from that comment. I'm glad you bring it up, Jim, because if they wanted to fuck with us, then they flip this to Trump now. But okay, so just a couple quick headlines actually that are related to this. One, from 850WFTL.com News Talk. Real Clear Politics withdraws Biden's Pennsylvania win, rescinds president-elect status. So, you could have predicted that there was going to be some back and forth. Is Real Clear Politics the ultimate arbiter of who gets Pennsylvania's electoral votes? No. But again, you can't predict, and we're watching this closely. It seems like with the calling of the race on Saturday for Biden, things have kind of calmed down, and we're measuring. Does Trump have the momentum to fight this, let alone win this? And it's possible. There are a couple of ways. As we covered the story yesterday, it's one administrator in the GSA, General Services Administration, or whatever they call it, who actually sort of holds the keys to the lockers to actually start the transition of power. But yeah, so this takes Biden, Pennsylvania, from down below the 270 threshold to 259 electoral votes. Fun little side story from Mediaite.com. Fox's Cavuto cuts off Trump campaign presser with scathing smackdown. I can't, in good countenance, continue showing this. And this is Neil Cavuto cutting off Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, speaking in her dual role as campaign spokesperson, and was addressing President Donald Trump's continued efforts to refuse conceding the election after news outlets projected that he had lost. And she said, quote, "There's only one party in America trying to keep observers out of the count room. That party, my friends, is the Democrat Party. You don't take these positions because you want an honest election. You don't oppose an audit of the vote because you want an accurate account. You know, and it's just there. Yeah, I'm totally with Cavuto here. You can't let your network maintain any kind of journalistic credibility if it just becomes a propaganda outlet for stuff that is obviously false. And there were enough things in this that you go, yeah, you watch it late, like we do with Adam versus the Man. You know, watch it later and bring you the Cliff's notes. Like I didn't even watch the Biden speech from Saturday. I think CJ or Jim watched it for us and said, yeah, I felt dumber at the end of it. You don't need to watch it. That's all you need to know. Couple other just quick political headlines before we get to our guest. I don't see anything in the producers club to say that she's checked in yet. So CNBC has this: Trump says Defense Secretary Mark Esper has been terminated. That's like even better than being fired. President Donald Trump announced that Mark Esper has been terminated as Defense Secretary. He said Christopher C. Miller will be acting Secretary of the nation's largest department. The announcement on Twitter came about 5 months after Trump and Esper had a public break over how to handle civil unrest in America's cities. Administration officials said the directors of the FBI and the CIA could be next. And the crazy thing here is that it suggests there's some potential maneuvering related to the election that is happening here, where they're going to need the military backing them up for the, and that is a scary possibility. I hope that's not it. But yeah, Trump playing musical chairs in his administration, nothing new. Quick headline from the Associated Press: as cases rise, states say they'll work with Biden on virus. Now, of course, if you're a partisan Democrat state, you can just be like, oh, well, we can in our little lane here in this part of government, we can decide, who's president for our purposes at least. So you see state agencies going, yeah. The incoming Biden administration is promising a cohesive national strategy to combat the worsening coronavirus outbreak, something many public health officials and Democratic governors say they welcome after months of mixed messaging under the Trump administration. Consistency about the need to wear a mask to reduce the virus spread is just a start. Among other things, they say they need help with testing and contact tracing, deploying an eventual vaccine, and more money to shore up their budgets, including to help keep schools open. Let's see. All right, our guest did say to me, cool. So hopefully she's plugging in. I don't know if you want to reach out to her, CJ. We do have a few more headlines we can skim through as we're going here. One of my favorite memes that I've seen recently, it's Skeletor going, "Joke's on you. I'm into that shit." And so I made my own little version of that. Which you can see on my Instagram.com. If they don't block you, the shadow banning on Instagram is one of the funniest ones for me. When you go, how can you do something that gets you from 0 to 20,000 followers and then be stuck? Like we've been stuck at 21,000 followers for years. It's something else. All right, so the guest is right. So I'll just finish this one point here. But yeah, the meme is, you know what? I take it back. We'll come back to that. let's go ahead and get our guest up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Dia Beltran is an Australian YouTuber. She's been moving from right-wing political stance towards principled libertarianism. At least that's my optimistic narrative of what I think is happening here. Yes, and she considers herself a Christian conservative. Her YouTube channel is El Dia Opina, YouTube.com/El Dia Opina. Yes.
Yes, that's the actual link. Yes, what you just
All
said.
right.
Dia Beltran is
Awesome.
fine. They can just write Dia Beltran. That's fine.
You'll find her one way or another. Dia, thanks so much for joining us. And if I may, before you even say anything else, there's one other thing I have to say in introducing you that you interviewed me for your channel about a month ago, maybe.
It was good.
And,
it was fun.
And not only do I enjoy your accent very much, but you were particularly receptive to a kind of intellectual challenge that we as libertarians are trying to make to the mainstream, to statists, to the world. And a lot of people reject logic. I know this is shocking, right? Reject logic for emotional reasons. Shocking. And this is obviously particularly prevalent in politics when there's an attachment to red flavored statism or blue flavored statism, as we would say, with the two old parties in the United States. So I really enjoyed that. I hope we can take a few minutes today to take that conversation to the next level, but first, or the next level deeper in principle. But maybe before that, if you want to tell us anything else to introduce yourself, how you got into media production, how bad COVID is in Australia, please.
Yeah, well, just to clarify my labels, I suppose you could say, I'm not actually a conservative. I lean conservative in that if you were to measure me on the current spectrum, I would be deemed a conservative. But because I have discovered with a lot of research how little conservatives do and how ineffective they have been, at least in my own country of Australia, but I'm pretty sure the United States too, I dropped that label a long time ago. So I'm a Christian, and that's pretty much it. I make up my own mind about politics. That doesn't make me a centrist. I'm far from a centrist. But yeah, look, I came to YouTube because I noticed so much wrong with the world, and I thought that my little tiny voice might be able to be effective. I thought I might be able to talk people out of the stupidity of promoting women, because women don't do anything wrong and women never lie and would never lie about being raped, and just things like that. Like what bothers me is just that we've lost common sense. And it's not to say that all Christians equate to common sense, but I believe in a biblical worldview, and I'm not a libertarian either, but I do lean, I have some libertarian leanings. I felt the need to say that. And the reason I enjoyed my time so much when Adam came on my show was because he, as he said earlier, he fairly schooled me on socialism, a topic that I thought I understood, which I clearly still have so much to learn on. But then I schooled him, and he let me sort of tease him, digitally. Like, he let me tease him and do, wear the hood out, because he doesn't know maybe as much about ethno-nationalism as I did. And we sort of both had that same understanding. Like, he's like, yeah, maybe it's not as dumb as I thought it was, or evil as I thought it was. And we had that exchange. And so I'm not to say that I'm an ethno-nationalist, but I do understand their perspective. And so, yeah, my whole entire thing is, let's bring common sense arguments back, and let's bring the beauty of the Bible back. Those are my two things.
Well, before we get more into this, where we are on the spectrum, and it sounds like you're talking conservative in a way that's more defined by a political party. Is that fair?
I'm not a part of any political party, no.
No, but when you say in Australia, when you say conservative, there's a conservative party, isn't that right?
There is a conservative party, but right. I don't follow them. In fact, they have publicly ousted me because of my former dealings with far-right individuals. which somehow makes me evil, which it doesn't, your associations don't make you who you are. Your associations merely mean that, you know, you were once friendly with that person, but that doesn't mean you espouse their views. And because I interviewed people that they deem, like Richard Spencer, I suppose, I was then deemed that way too, which I don't think is a fair brush to paint someone with. You should take everyone as a case-by-case basis. So the Liberal Party, our Liberal Party, is the Conservative Party. So our Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, is the party that first introduced abortion into this country, that introduced gay marriage into this country, which you guys probably don't care about being libertarian, but as a Christian, I do believe in the traditional male-female element.
Well, if I may, hold on a second there, Dee. I don't want to jump too far into this, but this might be fun to come back to. Is that as a libertarian, you know, we can be concerned with lots of things and say that needs to change, but remain committed to the libertarian ethical principle and say, if there's not a violation of somebody's rights taking place with these problems, like a forcible attack, an assault, or a theft or a fraud of some kind, then we can't intervene forcefully. So this is sort of like libertarians, hypothetically at least, will all agree that whatever social problems you see that are most important to you, and I'm anti-abortion, but I reject the pro-life, pro-choice framing of like it's a binary thing. But I still would say government should have nothing to do with it. I don't want a violent system to address the issue of abortion. I want peaceful, cooperative, loving, supportive solutions that at least meet the criteria of libertarian ethics. And within that, there are libertarians who want to, address all sorts of different things. And I don't want to, wade into that too much myself. All the whole culture wars is kind of the most emotionally charged part of politics, and gender issues and all that. But I'm with you with it. And when I see, and acknowledging a lot of these problems, the thing is, what sets us apart as libertarians is that we're not suckered into, well, therefore we have to use government to deal with this.
Well, God, that's the issue, I suppose. I think the element that we both agree on is that there's too much government reliance. It's funny too, because I'm friends with Dean McRae, whom you had on your show. He's an atheist. And my issue with atheism was always that, they're so silly because it's like daddy has to be government. Whereas for me, daddy would be God. Like I put my faith in something bigger than humanity because humanity is so flawed. I put my faith in something better. But Dean is a good atheist in that it's not daddy government. He hates government. And I feel like that's a lot of libertarians, whether religious or not, because obviously libertarians can be anything. They can be Christian, Muslim, whatever. There's no reliance on government. No one wants to depend on the government, and it's sort of more about like a volunteerism, communalism, some form of anarchy, I suppose, that makes sense. That isn't like destruction, and I like that because it means that even though he doesn't have faith, you might not have faith, but there's faith in something else, and it's in everyone as a community, and not in the government, which is so corrupt.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll come back and find a way to grab the third rail of religion and politics as well, and make something. Well, don't worry. We'll have more awkward moments before this interview is done, Dia. But first, I want to go back to the you brought up this issue of ethnostatism, and being.
I scored you on it, no, just kidding.
What's that? Right. As part of our backstory. No, but yeah, I'm half Jewish and half German by ethnicity, so I am genetically programmed to know everything I need to know about ethnostatism already. But why did you bring yourself? Well, no. How did this? Why did you bring that up? And how is this relevant to our past conversation? I suppose I should say one more thing. But before we go back to this, because the crux of what Dia was saying that I opened her eyes about regarding socialism was by actually challenging her to define that term and then see what actually fits within that definition. You go and then go, did my negative dynamics about socialism that I was ascribing to it, oh wow, yeah, it still applies to all of these things that are socialized under government today. And with that interview you mentioned, we played the game, which one is more communist, Australia or the US? And we went through the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. And I think the way it turned out was US beat Australia by like 9 to 8.5 points. But then Australia for gun confiscation took a clear lead and pulled out ahead for being more certainly more communist in terms of controlling firearms. But this idea that we demonize,
just for the audience, he's not talking about me. He's talking about himself and our friend Dean.
Yes, I'm sorry. In the interview with Dean, we played which country is more communist.
Correct.
And sorry, I left that out. Excuse me. Thank you. So what was new to Dia, and I want to ask you, like, where have you gone with this? But why ethnostatism, and how is that relevant to this point?
It's not. You just told me to give a brief history about myself. I actually did not mention ethnostatism in the original interview. That was you. And then I was like, this is an opportunity for me to mention everything that I know. And so then that it just happened that way. And so this time around, I mentioned it simply based on the fact that he was giving me credit, as you heard, for being challenged on an intellectual level and actually being receptive. And I was giving him the same compliment back, saying that, well, you let me pretty much promote a video saying how dumb you were on this, while I promoted a video saying how dumb I was on socialism, which doesn't bother me to acknowledge when I'm wrong. And that's the only reason I mentioned it, because it was sort of fair game equally. Yeah.
So the crux of where we are today, and I know the United States liberal, conservative, left, right spectrum skews at different angles from where we think of this in the United States. So if you're watching this and you're familiar with American politics, don't read too much into this. But as a conservative, as you described yourself, or right-leaning, or as we would describe conservatives in the United States who rail against socialism, they are often in denial about how much of society is essentially socialized, where we have retirement, the military, infrastructure, law enforcement, public safety. I mean, money. I mean, the big thing, the heart of the beast, the Federal Reserve System, right? But what I thought was so beautiful about that conversation, your moment of, your process of accepting this new idea, was that you were saying, I just want to live in a community where X, Y, and Z. And I had to be like, you mean you want to use the government to control other people's property because it's close to yours? And it's like, ooh.
Yes.
It's a really important point that, like, we as libertarians are like screaming constantly, like, no, you're all statists. You're all willing to use the violence of government to control other people's property. Stop it. And that thought exercise for you was a really beautiful revelation. I wish that every statist could be so lucky as to go through that and be able to admit to themselves. And it's hard because it's harder to, like Mark Twain, it's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they have been fooled. And this anti-socialism, because we don't that it's really anti somebody else's flavor of socialism.
Yeah.
And that we're in denial of that is so destructive. So, Dia, wherever you want to go with that.
Well, I think that's conservative wide. I am so anti the left-right paradigm. Like, and that bothers people when I say that. It does. It especially bothers the ethno-nationalists that still sometimes communicate with me here and there. They get very offended. It's like I'm personally stabbing them in the heart. They're like, oh, so Dia, you've transcended the left-right paradigm, have you? And I'm like, it's not that I've transcended it. I just don't see the need for it anymore. It's so stupid. I'm not left. I'm not center. For sure, yes, I lean more right. But all of these sides are morons. It's like the left blames the right and the right blames the left. They're guilty of the same things. I'm not going to sit here and say that the left that the right isn't better than the left. The right is better morally than the left. It is, but they are guilty of doing the same things, and it's just surprising to me that they haven't picked up on it themselves. And regarding socialism, the conservatives are under the perception that they are against it, and they are. They're against the Venezuela outline type, or or the Jim Jones or Jim Jeffries type conservatism, or the USSR type conservatism. But when you don't sort of make the connections that, well, if you're telling the government that no more people of this demographic because they cause more crime, and no more people of this demographic because they cause more rape, and no more people, like, yeah, they should do that, and I still agree that they should. By using the government to do that, you are absolutely trying to control private property, and that is a sense of socialism. So I still haven't figured out my way out of that. But I have realized exactly what it is, and
Yes.
so that's where I am with it.
And for a lot of people, these moments of insight and leveling up your worldview or your self-awareness or anything else in life, they often start with recognizing a contradiction. And then it can take some people, in a sense, it took me 10 years. I have to be extremely humble in this regard to recognize
it took
how
me minutes.
slow I was. Yeah,
Because
well,
I had Adam Kokesh.
yeah, right. Yeah, I try to make it easier for everybody else now. I had to read a bunch of books and shit. What was all that about? Rothbard, yeah.
You just needed an Adam
Intellectual
Kokesh.
godfather of the movement and all that. But no, oh man, 10 years, and I think it was in high school that I first identified as a libertarian, but didn't know what it meant for 10 years. I still, and this is why the principle to me is so important, because it didn't stop me from enlisting in the Marine Corps and volunteering for a combat tour to be a party to a war crime. So I want to just switch gears for a second, though, Dee, if you don't mind, since you are joining us from down under, and I'll spare everybody all the dumb dad jokes about Australia for at least they're coming out. But how much worse are things with COVID lockdown policy in Australia, and why?
They're better. It's improved, but
No, I don't mean worse. I don't mean worse in time. I mean worse compared to the rest of the world.
Oh, well, look. In terms of my home state, I used to live in Victoria. I now live in New South Wales, Sydney. So that's where the Opera House stuff is. Melbourne is further down. So I used to live there. That was the worst state Australia-wide. It was pretty much like, it was not just socialism. It was like communism. It was like they had guerrillas on the streets. Like the cops were like guerrillas on the streets. The streets were empty, tumbleweed. Now they've dropped pretty much every single regulation except for the masks, and for, I think, distance. I think at the moment it's I think churches have finally started to reopen. It's been like 7 months of being locked down and only being allowed outside for an hour a day, then progression to 2 hours a day, to now them finally being able to go out and have a coffee with their girlfriends. It is summertime, but the premier, which is, I suppose, our word for governor, the premier of that state has basically said, you're all free, except you're not allowed to drive beyond 25 kilometers. If I was good at maths, I could tell you what that is in minutes. I apologize. So I'm not sure what 25 kilometers is. Maybe one of your producers can look up 25 kilometers compared to miles. So you're not allowed to go beyond 25 kilometers. So that's still implemented, and you still have to wear masks. Bear in mind, it's hot here. It's summertime. So the mask isn't necessarily needed or required. It's just our Premier Daniel Andrews going, you're free, but I'm still in charge. And because I'm still in charge, this is the instruction I'm giving you. Let's see if you follow through. That's
So
how I perceive it.
So in Australia, even going back to the beginning of this thing, and Jim is already on this, our coast, 15.53 miles. And that, that's a weird kind of leash to put on a human being. But
Retarded. Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, I guess if you say it with that accent, it's not politically incorrect. So when because you sound retarded when you can't pronounce your R's properly. But but actually, you sound like a loyal British colonist to these American countries. But excuse me.
Hard. This is really hard.
Early on in this thing, we saw some of the worst enforcement in Australia with people at checkpoints fighting with cops, being pulled out of vehicles, protests being brutally suppressed.
Facebook posts. Someone went into someone's house. They went into this girl's house. She lives in a country town called Bendigo. Now, I've been to Bendigo before. It's about a 2.5-hour drive outside of where I used to live in Melbourne. And she just put up a Facebook post saying, you know, go to this rally. They went into their house. She's pregnant, arrested her, and took her out of the house. And they're like, why? Why are you doing this? I don't understand.
And seized all internet devices, including the husband's phone in the house. I mean,
yeah. So that's Daniel Andrews. And do you know what the shit thing is about this? In Australia already, the Premier of Queensland, which is the hottest part of Australia, the Gold Coast, the nice sunny area, she was re-elected. And then you think about
I gotta ask for someone in our producers club. Was that arrest for Facebook posting to promote events? Was that repeated? Was that just one egregious isolated incident?
That was an isolated incident, but I didn't do more research to know. But it would have made news. It would have easily made more news if someone else was arrested for the same reasons. So that was the only one we were aware of. So maybe they'll make an example of the poor kid.
Well, we shared that and we covered that story specifically and made a point to promote that, because when government, well, it's not just that it's, but when there's a spike in government exercising its authority, if no one objects, it will be commonplace. If people object, at least it can provide some kind of check on that power. So you mentioned
acquiescence, right? So your silence is consent.
Right. And so to those things, I think it's critically important to not be silent when government is threatening a new or added dimension to their racket like this. But back to masks in Australia as a whole, what's the enforcement?
I think it's a $1,600 fine if you walk around without a mask. Don't quote me on that. It might be 1,400. Either way, it's close to 2,000 almost.
Those are Australian dollars. They're not real money anyway, right?
I don't really know the how to match it, but I would say that you guys are usually higher than us. Yeah.
No, that's my alter ego. Adam Loves the Man, who's a fiat currency snob for the empire. I don't know if you caught that. We had some fun with me playing my alter ego for the week before the election here.
No, I didn't see that. But yeah, anyway, my only point is that at the moment, I have every single fear that every single person that acted like a dictator, Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, re-elected. Anastasia Palaszczuk in Queensland, re-elected. So Daniel Andrews of Victoria will be re-elected because people vote out of fear and stupidity. They believe their words. They believe that these people did everything they did to help protect them. And wow, there's no more number of cases. We're going to re-elect them. The worse they get treated, these people will be re-elected. They will be.
You know, I've never been to Australia, but I've been to Rotorua, New Zealand. So I guess I was close enough to smell Australia from there. Now we have a comment from Peter. For those of you who don't know, there's an insight to that joke. Rotorua is Sulphur City, fart town of New Zealand. Check it out. I got to play Rotorua Boys High School on a college rugby tour and get my butt kicked. But I will tell you, Aussie rules football, the Australian version rugby, sucks. Union all the way. Union all the way. No, right? Just Aussie rule. Yeah, you guys. I don't know. Just no. No. Anyway, Peter Yeaple in our producers club says, meanwhile, in New York, a 75-year-old married couple are in front of a judge at an outdoor court appearance for not wearing a mask. They both had medical excuses to not have to wear them. The police still arrested them due to King Cuomo's enforced mask wearing. Look out when those vaccines come, my fellow New Yorkers. So, Dia, about this though, when it comes to the enforcement of this in the United States, I mean, I can kind of assume if the government, like in places where government has, and it's been limited. Fortunately, we've been very lucky that most of America has not been as bad with the policy as New York, which has collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. But when you give the American police the authority to give you a ticket for $1,600, I mean, they shoot people for less than that. And if you give them the authority to detain you to issue said ticket, you're going to have brutality and violence in that physical confrontation in the enforcement, as we've seen in some limited cases in the United States, but we have seen application of police force in enforcing policies. Like most places here in the U.S., like I can go to Walmart and I might be the only one in there not wearing a mask, but if I go to the bank, they have security, they won't do it, and they will call the police and have you removed for trespassing if you refuse to wear a mask. I believe this is a policy of most banks in the United States or something like this. So to Australia, you haven't had guns in civilian hands since when?
Since I was a child. I think it happened in 1995 or 6 under John Howard. And John Howard only did it because there was a shooting that occurred. Now, this country doesn't get that many shootings as it is. That was, at that time, that was the 13th, number 13. And that particular shooting, unfortunately, I'm not an authority on this, so you guys are going to have to just take my word for it and then research it further. But so it was 1996. There was some sort of a massacre that took place, a gun shootout that took place, I think, at a cafe, and then it became like the final straw. And so one of the premiers, I think it was the Queensland premier, issued an idea or a legislation saying, let's remove all guns so that there are no more gun crimes. Port Arthur Massacre, yeah, that's the one. Thank you so much. In Tasmania, so in my head I had Adelaide, yeah, Tasmania. So that's one of our states. The issue that it was successful, that we had not had any massacres of more than 3 people by gun since. So one could argue that, but other types of crime did go up, and more people have guns more than ever before. Like, people don't think about 3D printers, people don't think about the black market, people don't think about a lot of other ways that one can acquire.
So step back for a second here, because when you say they banned all the guns and people turned them in, if the U.S. government tried to do that, one, they wouldn't be able to get away with it, not even close. But
we don't have your Second Amendments, so we don't even have your First Amendment. Goodness, but yeah.
We would assume that they would do it effectively, but are you telling me that this policy is not so effectively enforced that the average Australian can't buy a gun on the street?
The average Australian cannot buy a gun on the street. You need to have all of these different licenses. So if you have
I don't mean legally, I mean practically.
No, you can't just randomly buy it. So you don't mean legally, you mean practically.
Illegally. So, how hard is it to buy an illegal handgun in Australia?
I would say it's relatively basic. I've never done it, I've never enacted it, but I don't think it would be that difficult.
But you can't walk around with it on your hip, obviously.
No, but I've shot a gun before. I was in Queensland, because there are areas that you can shoot them. And I fainted, so I'm not the person. I know. Wait. Like, just to defend myself, I hadn't eaten that day. I hadn't had any breakfast. It was really hot. So I think I would have been.
Aren't you koalas supposed to be the proud descendants of the rejects of the British Empire, the punks and the misfits?
Yes, they are. But remember, I'm half Spanish, half Colombian. I'm an immigrant. I'm not supposed to be here.
All right, fair enough.
I teach wise. But you know what? I'm half Colombian. I should be able to like defend my cocaine with a gun. So I'm either way. Either way, I'm a really shitty Latina and Aussie.
All right, breaking the mold. So, well, what about the paradigm? What about the general population in Australia? Because again, Americans still have this
Yeah.
view of Australia that is sort of like Florida with Florida man, but with funny accents and kangaroos. Is there something else that you would point to? I mean, I would to my audience, I would say, remember, this is Australia, the country where most people effectively turned in their guns in 1996. And it got it to the point where, yes, they can't keep guns off the streets, but they can keep them from effectively being used in all but extremely limited circumstances.
Yeah.
So what changed?
Well, I already said the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania is what changed. So that issued the rest of the country to give back their guns.
It was before that. That was just a measurement of
moment. What are you confused about?
No, it's not that. It's just that I'm wondering over the course of Australian history, because I think this is perhaps more telling of a deeper understanding of human historical social dynamics. That America starts as the rebel colonies of the British Empire. Sure, Australia starts as the penal colony of the British Empire. And through and while both histories certainly need to be revised a number of ways, in America, obviously writing out the Articles of Confederation and the first presidents of the United States is problematic, to say the least. But there's a general spirit of frontiersmanship, of rebellion, of not being willing to submit to the king anymore.
I understand what you're saying.
And we both lost it. We both lost it.
Well, the thing is, there was a lot of debate at the time. I remember. I was, how old was I? I don't know. 96. I was 10. And I remember seeing like the news and going, oh wow, everyone's giving back their guns and it's such a big issue. I remember it, but I don't remember being more aware than just realizing, oh, they're giving back their guns. But now I feel like the average Australian, at least in my age group, has been conditioned to believe that this is a good thing. So most Australians, my friends, are anti-gun. Whereas I'm not. I was up until I was a raving conservative saying no guns for the longest time. I've sort of only really changed my stance on that recently. Stephen Crowder sort of helped me with that, like a lot of his videos. But it's funny because I remember talking to my friends back when I was still living in Melbourne and when I still had all of my friends. You get into politics, you kind of tend to lose half of them. But they were sort of, I don't think they realized how much they were contradicting themselves. They were anti-gun. They didn't believe in being anti-gun for the household. But when they were talking about being on a cruise one day, it was some sort of an event that took place. I don't remember what it was. It was something that happened in the waters of Australia somewhere. And some pirates or Sudanese pirates had like taken over a cruise ship or something. I don't know. This is really, really bad memory. And then they were like, they should really be able to defend themselves. They should really have guns and stuff. And I'm like, why don't you apply that to households in Australia? Like, it really shit me up the wall. I was like, what? That people don't realize that they're not consistent. And that's because they're not politically minded. And that's okay. My friends are not where I am. And I can't expect them to be. That's fine. But it is annoying to realize the lack of political consistency that exists right there. And then I said that. I said something like, but you don't want it for households, but you want it for cruise ships. They're like, well, they should be able to defend themselves for the people there. And I'm like, she goes, we wouldn't be doing it. Like the security guards would. And I'm like, but don't you trust yourself more than the security guard? Like, it was weird. And I didn't press it. You don't want to press your friends in politics when they have no idea.
Hey, who needs friends when you've got politics, Thea? Right? I mean, so
it was a simpler life. I'm not gonna lie. I do miss my friends and that lifestyle, but I feel more fulfilled now. So let's say that.
well, I want to. The way I would say it is that becoming an activist. I would like to think. What?
I kind of am.
Oh no, absolutely you are. Any kind of independent media production is a type of activism in and of itself, certainly. But then when you at least meet other libertarian activists who have similarly built a purpose-driven life around taking on the biggest injustices in the world, there's a kind of camaraderie that's I think better than any friendship, or at least a deeper than any.
But you guys are super friendly.
But see,
you
this
guys
is
love and embrace me like I am one. So I love that. You guys are super kind and friendly. It was really funny too because I said to Dean before I went live with you, which was about 8 hours ago, because obviously I've woken up early for this. I'm like, they haven't confirmed the interview for me. I don't really know if it's still going ahead. He goes, the Libertarian. He goes, it's going ahead. That was it. I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, of course it's going ahead. They already confirmed it when they asked you. And I'm like, oh. Like, wow, because there really is a nature among libertarians, and it's really pretty similar. It's really funny. Like, yeah, I find that unusual. Go. Sorry.
Because there's something inherently about libertarianism as a message relative to statism that is, we're the no nonsense, no bullshit alternative. And there are other places that we apply that.
Yeah.
but also, what like we said earlier, I think what sets us apart as libertarians is that we are able to critically examine our emotional attachment to the status quo, to culture, to government, to our ideas even, and from making intellectual. And it's not to say that we're not emotional, but that we're certainly more rational and capable of setting our emotions aside to make important decisions. But Dia, before we go, I want to give you, and I said I have one more tough question for you, like I promised. But first, well, what do you want to challenge me on while you got me here?
Oh, probably I have nothing to challenge you on. Oh, is that your question? I challenged you on one issue already, and that was pretty much it. Like, I don't know. I have a question actually, and this will come off really rude, and I apologize, but I know you don't care, and so anyone watching, I apologize in advance if this is offensive. But apparently, libertarianism is bad because it was invented by the Jews. This is what I hear from the idiots that sometimes communicate with me. What is your thoughts on that? Maybe that can be my question. I just find that actually, I have an illustration here. Where is it? Here it is. Someone named Rothbard, then von Mises, Friedman, Locke, and Rand. Well, because those particular 5 happen to be Jewish, just those 5, even though it's a movement with thousands and thousands upon millions of people, that makes it a Jewish movement. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm being half Jewish. What's that?
How do you respond?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all,
I'm not anti-Semitic, but I just felt to ask that to them because they're so stupid sometimes.
It's a bullshit reverse appeal to authority. If a Jew said it, it must be incorrect.
Yeah, so you must be dirty because you're half that. That's so stupid.
You expose that, and normally that kind of logical fallacy is reversed and known as the appeal to authority, where it must be right because the authority said it, or this person is an authority, therefore it must be true. And it's just reversed with racism as an inverted, appeal to authority to say that as Jews you have no authority or credibility. No, I mean, we can reject that as an argument out of hand and say, no, you have to decide the case on the merits. The message, not the messenger, is what matters here. And
I agree. Yeah.
As a Jew, at least half ethnically and by culture and heritage and family history, and a fan of Murray Rothbard, I'd be tempted to take some kind of ethnic pride, But perhaps the, there's a certain personality type and intelligence type that is attracted to, or that is, I should say, more inclined to be the first to embrace libertarianism. And it's not the captains of the football teams and the cheerleading squads who are the first to challenge the status quo, right? A lot of us, one way or another, are rejects and punks and rebels and outcasts and square pegs and round holes and all of that. And so we joke that the libertarian movement is kind of autistic. We're on that spectrum too. But
you're not autistic. All the Australian ones are like, I don't mean to be rude, but they're very intellectual, but they're very heavy.
I think
which we spoke about on my show.
The thing about the autistic mind is that there's a certain analytical, circuitry that we have a little bit stronger. I think that's like, you put a Rubik's cube in front of us, we can't walk away until it's solved.
I'm autistic, I think I must be.
You take an autistic, American white man, and you put enough of the news in front of him, eventually he's going to go, no. There are some pretty serious contradictions here. There's a lot that doesn't add up. There's a lot that doesn't line up with this Rubik's cube. Now we got it. And when you combine that, introvert analytical personality type with a love for humanity that leads us to want, rather than count the toothpicks on the floor, we want to solve the biggest problems in the world that are causing the most human suffering. And so I think everybody's going to get this eventually, but they don't have to, for us to be able to change the world and make it a better place and to eliminate the institutionalized injustice of the state. So, are Jews or Murray Rothbard, more likely to be the first to get into this? Maybe.
Well, I defended you very much, because when they were saying things like, oh my gosh, look what he's saying, look at this, look at that. I'm like, I said, you guys don't know him on an individual level. And I mean, I don't know you really well on an individual level either, but I kept saying he kind of doesn't even care about his heritage. He rarely mentions it. He only mentioned it because I sort of brought it up. I'm like, this is not a guy that walks around thinking, yay, Jewish supremacy, we're the best. Like, I said so many times that he doesn't care about his heritage. He's just happy to be an American, and he's a libertarian and blah, blah. But it seems that people lack the ability today to take someone on a case-by-case individual basis. It's always based on the collective, which I don't like. I understand it because, Asian drivers are slow drivers. That's pretty true. So I understand that there's a pattern. I understand the pattern of behavior. So I get why they do it, because there's a pattern of behavior and a statistical average. But when I'm saying to them, okay, yeah, you can do that. Yes, he's Jewish. But I'm telling you that on an individual level, and they're not taking my word for it, because I find that a little insulting. It's like, do you trust me at all? Why are you in my groups? Why do you follow me if you're not going to take something I say by face value and more depth into that? But anyway.
Yeah, this is one measure of the effectiveness of the government takeover of the education systems in most of the world, in that they don't teach logical fallacies. They teach you the fallacious reasoning. There's a great chart. I love this. Early on in my process of awakening as a libertarian, I came across a list of logical fallacies and was like, all right. And I think that should be in every classroom. But they don't do that because they want you in the certain areas that are essential to maintaining the exploitation racket and rackets around government. They want you to use their shorthand, their judgment, to not think for yourself, to not think critically.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to outsource certain ideas, or probably I don't know how to build a car. I bought a car. Someone else built it for me. That's like, duh. But I don't say, oh, because you're a car manufacturer, you're infallible. You can never be wrong. It's right because it came from the manufacturer that way. Mm-hmm. So that being said, Dee, I told you I'd have one last hard question for you. And it's, as a Christian, I guess I would say, are you a Bible literalist? What do you take in the Bible as, what is your attitude towards the text of the Bible? And if that is the truth, how do you know what is true and what is not?
I take the Bible contextually, and a lot of it is literal, yes. So that I know that has already made me lose credibility, because people are like, oh, she lives in a magical sky, daddy, and then a snake can talk to people.
You've had this conversation with Dean a few times.
With plenty of atheists, but yeah, Dean mainly. Look, I take the Bible on a contextual level, and how do I know the truth? I suppose I know it because, one, I can't just read the Bible and know on my own. I don't have that capacity. What I mean is, of course, I have the capacity, but there's a reason why Christians are supposed to fellowship, because you have someone else, an elder, perhaps, say, okay, that's what that means. For example, there is a Bible verse in Genesis 6 somewhere, and it talks about how angels from heaven came to earth and were with women. And a lot of people said, oh, no, that's not what that means. And I'm like, well, that's what it says. No, it doesn't mean what you think. It just means this and that. And I'm like, well, what you're saying is not literal. What I believe is that it's literal. So the angels of heaven, so fallen angels, went to earth, had sex with women, and they created giants. And then if you think about like today, yes, thank you. It's always honored. If you think about today, how if you go to like American mounds, there are mounds all over America that where skeletons were discovered, and these skeletons were giants. Really, and I know this is retarded that I'm talking about this on a show like this. This is not something I thought I would talk about. This is usually something I would talk about on something like A.L. Marzulli's show or Timothy Alberino's show, like that. I would talk about this with them. But look, things like that. So I know the Bible is true because I do take it literally, but I often take it contextually, because you can't take everything literally, because some of it won't make sense. But I know it's true because also Christ is an experience. Christ is an experience. And I know that that's not evidence for God, but we have a conscience for a reason. We're living, thinking, sentient, cognitive beings who have an understanding of right and wrong. We have a conscience, and that's God-given. And that's just the start for those who don't believe in God. That's the beginning. And then when you sort of call out to God a little bit more, you'll have an understanding of faith and all that kind of stuff. There's so many atheists that tried to disprove the Bible and became Christians. Someone like Lee Strobel comes to mind.
All right, Dia, thank you so much for that a personal answer to that. I really appreciate it.
I hope it helped.
Excuse me?
I said, I hope it helped.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's just just understanding you and all of these other dynamics and
how wonderful I am. Yes. No.
Getting a fair sense of the spiritual background and the worldview background, that all this political conversation is happening in front of. So your YouTube channel, recommend everybody check it out. Subscribe, El Dia Opina, Dia Beltran. You can find it from just her name there, Dia Beltran. Dia, any last thoughts today?
No, thank you just so much for having me, and I really appreciate it. And it'd be really fun to have you on my show again for a panel show, maybe you and Dean or something. Like, that'd be really cool. And everyone just don't submit to the government. Like, do what you can to oppose them. Don't be the silent majority. Be the active minority.
Well said. Thank you so much, Dia.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to skim a few more headlines. I made a big pile here today, a big mess for CJ. There's so much fun stuff in the news that I want to get into. We're not going to have time to properly get into today. But then we're going to go check in with the audience to wrap up the show. Again, asking this question, what is the threat right now of World War III? Could we get some major force-on-force conflict? I would say as a result of COVID, but rather with governments using it as an excuse. So one of the things I said, the libertarians are going to cover the spread between Trump and Biden in enough critical states that pretty soon here, and I think we can appreciate as libertarians that when the old party people are fighting between the left and the right, they're not fighting us as hard. And I think the inclination to blame libertarians has been sort of postponed by all this wrangling of the last week. But this headline from Newsweek, Libertarian Party could play a big role in Trump's impending defeat, but party chair says they're not to blame. And the framing of that, Joe Bishop Henchman, our chair, is mentioned in this article, and he's always great. He's always on message. And they go, party chair says they're not to blame. And so I'm thinking about this meme that I made, and I was recreating somebody else's, but it's, if you go to Instagram.com/Adam Kokesh, follow me there, see if you don't get automatically unfollowed from me. But it's that Skeletor, pointing, going, "Joke's on you, I'm into that shit." Well, the part I added up top was, when your statist friends blame you for costing their corrupt piece of crap duopoly candidate the race because you voted for a principled libertarian. Yeah, joke's on you. I'm into that shit. And they will come at you with this framing of, well, libertarians it might be if they're Trump is the one who's pandering to you, so you're throwing your vote away when you could be part of a bigger coalition, and you're really against your own self-interest if you're voting for Joe Jorgensen instead of Donald Trump. It's like, no, you're either it's like asking a trick question by imposing that statist framing on it. Wall Street Journal, WSJ.com opinion has this headline: libertarians spoil the election. Joe Jorgensen exceeds Biden's margin in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. Yeah, good. Yeah, joke's on you. I'm into that shit. Excuse me. And I love this. This is from the last related article I have. And all these links, it's fun stuff. If you want to catch up in the show notes and read into all of everything we cover on the air, it's there in the audio production of this podcast. This is from thegazette.com. Did libertarians cost GOP a U.S. House seat in Iowa and the presidency? If libertarianism is the heart and soul of conservatism, as Reagan said, then conservatives have lost their hearts and souls. Now, I used to use this quote as a way to sort of call conservatives to their deeper human ethical principles of freedom. To say, well, Reagan said, those for whom the appeal to authority has some effect. Well, Reagan said it, so it must have some merit. But I fundamentally, is libertarianism the heart of conservatism? You can define these terms in a lot of different ways. But if you mean in any way right wing in the U.S., or the actual definition of the word conservative as in to conserve the status quo, to preserve existing social institutions, it's not. Nowhere close. So lost their hearts and souls, maybe. I don't know. Quick update with Kyle Rittenhouse from the Daily Caller. Man charged with 2 felonies for giving 17-year-old Kenosha gunman weapon used in fatal shootings. And this other one, and this is, how much is really behind this from Chicago Tribune versus, he's going to be a lot of demonization and misinformation around this story. At some point, we're going to come back and, maybe when it goes to trial, or if we see that it's not going to trial, come back and do another thorough examination the way that we did at the first incident, the first night after or the next day after the Kenosha shootings. But the Chicago Tribune headline is, Kyle Rittenhouse's mother didn't know what he was doing on night of fatal Kenosha protest shootings. Kyle Rittenhouse's mother said she would have tried to stop her teenage son, don't take your guns to town, from going to downtown Kenosha with an AR-15 style rifle during chaotic protests in August, but she didn't know where he was or what he was doing by the time she found out he had fatally shot 2 men and wounded a third. So, yeah. Cheers to Kyle Rittenhouse. They're already coming out with the anti-vaxxer propaganda now that Pfizer's got their 90% effective vaccine on the horizon. MSN has this story. Pfizer said a vaccine was almost here. Anti-vaxxers lost it. A safe, effective COVID-19 vaccination is finally on the rise, and cue the people who say they won't take it or that vaccines are the harbingers of a dictatorship. You know, when you have to so grossly misrepresent your opposition, it's because you don't have an argument. There are no anti-vaxxers who say that vaccines themselves are the harbingers of dictatorship. But forced vaccinations, yeah, it's kind of different, right? Fun update from our producer's home state of South Dakota. South Dakota governor is asking for donations for Trump, but Watchdog says the money will likely stay with her. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem was quick to launch a fundraising campaign over the weekend that asked supporters to help us bring it home for the president. But it looks like the donations will help her campaign rather than President Trump. You're going to see a lot more of that in the next. I mean, are you telling me that political fundraisers are opportunists? Shocking, right? Also, critical headline, just to know that this happened from the Sun. Terror slaughter. ISIS fanatics behead 50 men and boys on Mozambique football pitch before chopping them up and kidnapping every woman. So yeah, not going to pick this apart. Not going to get into it, but definitely I feel like I would have to let people know. Positive news from Forbes.com. Walmart to test robotic deliveries with electric cruise self-driving vehicles. Yeah, that might be how it happens, that we get self-driving cars faster because they start using them as delivery vehicles for Walmart. Let's see. Oh, hey, really good news. This is a good one to end on for our headlines. Follow up from CNN.com. Arizona County dismisses marijuana charges after state votes to legalize it. The prosecutor in Arizona's largest county by population is dropping all pending charges for rec marijuana used by adults after Arizona voters legalized it in the November election. Quote, instead of continuing to spend resources on these cases, this office will begin implementing the will of the voters immediately, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office said in a written statement Monday. And in case you missed it, if you've been listening to our show, Prop 207 passed last week with 60% of the vote. I think that's all we have for urgent headlines for you today. I guess one other reminder that I have for veterans. This is from the VA, blogs.va.gov. Again, we'll have the link in the notes. To help non-filers, IRS sets November 10 as National EIP Registration Day. This is Economic Impact Payment. One more government handout you can apply for. I just want to give everybody the heads up. And this is for veterans with little or no income, and non-filers may be eligible to receive an economic impact payment. So we'll probably come back to this tomorrow on Veterans Day, get into it a little bit more. But for now, let's check in with our audience and wrap things up on this question about World War III before we get to the good news and call it a day.
Yo. I don't see any new answers on the World War III question. I posted it as a comment, so people should be coming in with that right now. I just want you to know, though, you got to be very careful because you almost killed somebody while you were doing that interview. Case Copeland said, "I'm eating and nearly choked, laughing at your attempt at an Australian accent."
Well, throw it all shrimp on the bobby then. Let's get on with it. Yeah, the dad jokes, they're like right there, right under the surface, just waiting to come out. Then Jim, who would be our winner today? What do you think? I wasn't tracking that. What do you think was our best comment to answer this question of how much of a risk is World War III?
I'm not sure we got one. Nobody really stepped up on this one, I don't think, because nobody really. Just people were saying about the Civil War, and as we discussed, you were looking for more of how long are we away from an actual, undeniable, comparable to World War II situation.
Well, maybe we won't have a winner who gets membership at the Producers Club today if nobody got Jim's attention. But if you want to jump in the last couple minutes before we wrap up, maybe Jim can come back on and interrupt. But the Producers Club, you can join by going to AdamVersusTheMan.com, find Patreon, give us $10 a month, buy your way in if you can't win membership on the air, which we usually give away 2 or 3 per week. It's a lot of fun to grow this behind-the-scenes team for Adam versus the Man. You can also support the show by getting merchandise there. Don't forget to check out my profile at makethemdebate.com and make me debate. Let's have some fun with this. I can debate as myself, as my statist alter ego, or I can moderate, whatever you like. It's a cool platform to make debates happen. Don't forget to support our sponsors in our affiliate program with cigarfederation.com. Check out their website, promo code ADAM10, ADAM, all caps 10, gets you 10% off your order, and you can join us for cigars and sunsets most Fridays here, hopefully. And since we're pointing out again, check out the snow that we got here night before last at the Garden of Freedom. Really cool. Instagram.com/the Garden of Freedom. And if you want to get involved with that or anything else we've got going on here, please send me an email, adam@thefreedomline.com. So that being said, let's get to the good news for today. And this is really funny because this is goodnewsnetwork.org. We always get to judge how good is this news. 30 years ago today, the iconic film Home Alone was released. So that was cool. I remember that from my childhood. Not exactly what I would call an important day in history, but all right, cultural icon created. On this day in 1792, the White House, designed by Irish-born architect James Hoban, received its cornerstone in Washington, D.C., and construction commenced on the future home and office of every U.S. president since John Adams. That you get a special house for being the leader of the criminal racket. I don't think that's really good news to celebrate. On this day in 1919, the first national convention of the American Legion. Yeah, and then excuse me. Well, I made it through the show. CJ, there are 2 references to the Marine Corps here, and they don't point out that it's our birthday. How dare they? It was on this day in 1954 that the Marine War Memorial was dedicated across the river from Washington, D.C., and today is known as the Iwo Jima Memorial because of the iconic AP photograph on which it was based. You recall, of course, the famous flag-raising photograph from Iwo Jima. I believe that was the battle that was referenced earlier in the Commandant's Marine Corps birthday message. And it was on this day in 2006 that the National Museum of the Marine Corps was dedicated and opened near the Quantico Marine Base in Triangle, Virginia. But yeah, never forget, it was on this day in 1775 that the Continental Congress decreed that 2 battalions of Marines be raised. And thus was born the United States Marine Corps. And hence, we celebrate this as our birthday every day. So happy birthday to my fellow Marines out there. Thanks so much for joining us. Mwah. Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.